Hi, welcome back to Basement Backgammon. On this episode, we're going to be looking at a book from originally printed in 1930. This particular copy is for the third printing. It was printed sometime after 1931, and it's called Winning Backgammon at Sight. The At Sight series is kind of like the Dummies series that we have now, where we have Chess for Dummies, Backgammon for Dummies. You know those books. This was the same version, the Dummies books, in 1930 that was supposed to give you kind of an overview of the rules and some basic strategy on various games. There was a contract bridge at sight book that was the best-selling bridge book in the country at the time, and this is the Winning Backgammon at Sight by the same people, right around the time when backgammon was becoming a huge craze in the U.S. In 1930 and 31. So let's take a look at this. It's a very small book, as you can see. It's really a booklet. It's got a hardcover. And when you open it up, you've got a little cover page. It tells you a little bit about it. And then it opens like this. And there are these small pages here. And as you go to a page, you can lift it up and you could read about that particular topic. So this is about entering a man on the bar. There's a couple things that are interesting about this book. Backgammon was a little different in 1930, and they were just coming up with the modern rules. Most of the rules are about the same, but it's interesting to see some variations and some interesting little discrepancy. No, discrepancy is not the right word. Colorations of the time period. For instance, you can see that even back then, the number 7 point was called the bar point, which makes sense. It's the point next to the bar. They didn't have a name for the 5 point. Wasn't called the golden point. But here, this particular diagram was very commonly used in various backgammon books, even to this day, taken from these older books. And you can see that there is the word light over here on the side. And I always wondered why it said light. Sometimes they even show a lamp. And if you read about it, it will actually tell you about it. So this tells you how to set up the board. And if you read about it, it says the table nearest a light, such as a window or a lamp, is customarily called the inner table. The other is known as the outer table. So when you see this in these diagrams, it really means that you should be bearing off towards the light, which I find to be kind of interesting. Let's see, a couple of other things that are interesting. What does it say? Moving men on the cast of doublets. So they don't call it doubles. The original word for this was doublets, but otherwise it's the same. It says it right here. When doublets are cast, the same number appearing on both dice, player casting the doublets is entitled to double the number of moves. Now it's interesting that it says entitled, because that makes it sound like it's optional, when we know that doubles you are forced to move at most 4, but as many as you can move. What other things are kind of interesting here? You can see some interesting things. So how to play, there's a strategy section on how to play opening rolls. I'm just looking at this one. I don't want to go through all of them, but it's quite interesting. As you can see, the double, for any of the ones, these are all the ones, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, and I'm assuming 1, 6 is standard. Yes, 1, 6 is on the next page. It's standard to make the bar point. But for all the ones, double ones, of course, we're going to make the 5 point and the 6 point. The 7 point and the 5 point. But on all the other ones, it tells you to come down and slot the 5 point. That's the standard suggestion in 1930 for playing the ones. 2-1, your point 6 to your point 5, opponent's point 12 to your point 11. And it's interesting also that they call it opponent's point is on the other side, whereas it's not your 12, it's their 12. So you move his 12, which would be your 13, to 11. And you can see that over here, by the way. It goes 1 to 12 on one side and 1 to 12 on the other side. So it's your opponent's 12, not 13. So they have not yet gotten to that standard where it's 1 through 24 going one way and 1 through 24 going the other way. So just an interesting variation of history here. It tells you to slot the 5 and bring down the 2. Same thing with 3-1. It tells you to bring down the 3 and slot the 5. 4-1, bring down the 4, slot the 5. 5-1, bring down the 5 and slot the 5. So that's kind of interesting, because that's not something we normally see, except in case you are behind in a tournament match and you need to catch up on points and you want to slot the 5. But slotting the 5 was the standard play back in 1930, or at least according to this book. So obviously computers have shown us a different strategy for splitting in the back rather than bringing down the 2. But it does depend on context. What other things do I need to show you? Oh, yes. So they do have, even as back as far as 1930, they were talking about chouettes. So let me bring the rules of chouettes for a second, because there's one other thing I wanted to show you. Where is it? Nope, here it is. Okay, chouettes, here we go. So the rules of chouettes are the same, but they don't call, they call it the box, right? So it's the man in the box, but there's no captain terminology. They call it the active opponent. Active opponent meaning we know there's a team behind him, but we call it the active opponent would be the person playing across from the box. What we know today is the captain. So that's a little different as well. What other things here are interesting? Doubling. I know they were talking about scoring by checkers. Yes. A gammon is not called a gammon in 1930. They call it a gammon double. And the same thing as a backgammon is not just called a backgammon, it's called a backgammon triple. And as far as doubling is concerned, they have not yet, in 1930, they hadn't yet popularized the cube. The cube had been introduced, but it hasn't been fully accepted. So people were still using scoring by matches to keep track of doubles and keep track of scores. So you can see that in the doubling section, they don't even mention the cube. They just say that you can call a double. So as you can see, it says right here in the middle, although doubles may be called as many times as desired, alternately by each player, they seldom exceed 4 or 5. So clearly doubling was more common back in the day, because they think 4 or 5 is fairly common, whereas now to double 4 times would be, let's see, 2, 4, 8, 16 is a 4, and 32 is a 5. So for that to be common is pretty insane to me, but they think it is. Nevertheless, this is what they say. So this is an interesting book I was able to get recently. It's a nice little slice of history documenting what backgammon was like in 1930. And keep watching for more content. There'll be more stuff coming up fairly soon. Thanks very much.